Hi everyone, Helen Blunden here. Hope you're happy, healthy and well. It is time for a new book review today where I share some life lessons out of the books that I have been reading. And this particular one by Delphine De Vigan, which is her latest book, is the one I'm going to talk about, and it's called Kids Run the Show. Now this book by Delphine De Vigan, she's a French author, she's a prize winner as well, and this book is her latest one. It was published in 2023. It was translated from French by Alison Anderson. If you're interested as well, I have reviewed another book by Delphine De Vigan called Gratitude on this channel, so simply have a look through my videos and you'll find it there. And you can see that it is a library book and it's fairly new, and I think I was the first person who read it, so oops, I've cracked the spine. Anyway, when I saw Delphine De Vigan, I thought, right, I have to get this book because I really enjoyed her previous book that I read called Gratitude, and this one is very different to her previous one, but nevertheless I would say if you are someone out there who wants to consider a book for your book club, I would strongly recommend this book because it has everything. It's current themes around the use of social media, around how influencers behave online and how they've changed our behaviors, and in particular about a couple of women who each have a different relationship to social media. This book, as I was reading it, really brought up my own questions about what am I doing here on YouTube? What are my intentions? How do I impact people positively or negatively through this channel? So it made me think a lot about the use of social media and the use of YouTube, and how as a society we are all now being impacted in some way by watching reality TV 24/7 through social media in some way. So very, very big themes and topics, and in particular excellent book for book clubs, so I would recommend this for a book club. What is the book about in general terms? In general terms, it is a mix of like a crime thriller, also a perspective of two women. And these two women, if you can imagine a spectrum, and on this spectrum as to the level of knowledge and application and use of social media from one end to the other, we've got Melanie, who is a mother of two children, Sammy and Kimmy, and Sammy's about 8 years old and Kimmy's about 6 years old, and Melanie loves the idea of putting her children up on YouTube. They've got this YouTube channel called Happy Recess with millions of followers, and she basically records her children's life on YouTube through their channel 24/7. It's crazy. She's sponsored by big brands, she's got millions of followers, and her entire life is all about, I guess, showcasing the life of young Sammy and Kimmy, who we find are now getting a bit tired of their mother pushing them on the screen all the time. And we also get snippets of how young Sammy's being bullied at school, and how young Kimmy, who's 6 years old, really now just doesn't want anything to do with being online because of this huge audience that they've built. But we've also got Melanie, who is a woman who needs to have confirmation by an audience, needs to have those likes, those followers, those subscriptions to build a channel. She needs to be fed by this need to have this recognition by brands, by sponsors, and she feels she's doing the world a service by showing the life of Sammy and Kimmy. In her head, what she's doing, it is for the good of the world and for the good of society and for the good of her community. And even that made me think about different aspects of how social media has changed our language. So she's on one end of the spectrum. Now on the other side of the spectrum we have Clara Roussel, and Clara comes from a background of activists. Her parents were activists, they didn't have TV growing up, and so Clara is the police detective who is responsible for coming up with the different clues when young Kimmy is kidnapped from the park. Clara is someone who is not on social media, doesn't understand the whole influencer world, and in fact has to go through and really investigate and research the Happy Recess channel by watching hours upon hours of YouTube videos and also Instagram shorts to try and understand how young Kimmy could have been kidnapped from people watching them. And she is at a point in her life where she starts to question that society has moved so far away from her own perception that she just doesn't understand Melanie. And the two women look at each other as if they are two aliens. We've got Clara, who doesn't understand social media, who really doesn't understand why Melanie is doing this to her children. And then we've got Melanie, on the other hand, who looks at Clara, who just doesn't understand why what she's doing is for good and why she's not online and why she just doesn't understand the life of an influencer. So two very different people on opposite sides of the spectrum who now give us a perspective of, and this is my life lesson here, of I guess life in general, in the sense that there are people now out there in the world who are giving up social media, who are choosing not to go online, who are cutting contact with social networks, of online communities, of algorithms, of also being more private online, versus a world which is still that influencer world, which is very much out there. It's all based on likes, follows, subscriptions, on brand deals, on influencer contracts, on building an audience, building a community, I do this because this book actually made me really think about the language of how we justify ourselves for being online. And reading this, it made me realize that YouTube, obviously, I kind of already knew, YouTube is big business. YouTube's intention is for us to keep eyeballs on the different channels in order for us to buy more, to consume more. It's all about big business, sponsorship contracts and so forth. But it's getting to the point that we are the Truman Show on steroids. And even now, when I think back to the Truman Show on that movie with Jim Carrey, it just kind of seems laughable now. We are all in a world where we are living our own Truman Show. So the big themes in this book for me were all about the fact that it is an indication of where society is at, and we're at a point where we're now on a spectrum, and there are still a lot of people who are like Melanie, who it's all about big business and all about sponsorship. But where do you draw the line, especially when your children are involved, especially when the children now have become such like actors, but they're not even actors, they are in their real life, in their real home life, and they have to perform 24/7, and yet they're not getting any benefit back from the parents. So there was the big question of where do you draw the line with regards to children being in their own YouTube channels? How do the parents pay their young children? How are the young children treated? Should they be treated like young actors? There's the question of, is it like in the past where you had children actors, and how were they responsible? This is quite different because the children actors of the past actually had a job, and they were there doing their job for a period of time. But with YouTube and with Instagram shorts and with Instagram, these children are on show. And so what is that doing to their lives? How is it changing their psychology? How is it changing their relationship to their parents? How is it changing their relationship and other relationships to other children, their age, their peer group, the impact to their schools, the behaviours, everything. So these are very big concepts. It also showed to me the impact of how we grow up based on our parental beliefs. So we see Melanie on the one hand needed to have confirmation and needed to have love from a group of strangers, from her community, because she didn't get that love from her own mother. Similarly, we have Clara on the other hand, who has become a recluse because she now does not understand the world. She's now in a job where she's seeing the evil in the world. She's seeing how things are going really, really crazy. And being a police officer and investigating, I guess, the evil in the world, she's starting to realize that she somehow can't place herself in this world. She's not understanding it what's one bit. Both women are becoming isolated in their own way. Melanie is becoming isolated in her own idea. You could basically see that she is a narcissist. She is someone who just can't see that she's impacting negatively on her children. And at the same time, Clara also is becoming more isolated simply because she's not understanding this new world that she's in. For me, this was a great book because it brought up a lot of questions around the behaviors and the negative impact of social media and the negative impact of children being online 24/7, and in particular children paraded by their own parents by creating this YouTube channel, how it creates kind of like a very fake environment around them, a fake environment where they get given gifts from brands and sponsors, where they do unpacking and they have to be surprised, where they have to do challenges set out by their mother in order for them to appease their viewers. And in actual fact, it feels as if the young children are like monkeys. They're there to perform and parade and pretend just for the sake of getting views and sponsorship deals. So I didn't get that. I was more like Clara in this sense. Now, you might be thinking the cover art. I always look at the cover art of books and go, well, you know, I don't understand that. And I also didn't understand why Kids Run the Show was the title. But then as the more and more you read it, you go, right, okay, I understand it. In French, it was Les Enfants Sont Rois, which the kids are kings or the kids are royalty. So Kids Run the Show, and I think it's a bit of tongue-in-cheek that the kids run the show. It's not actually the kids running the show. Kids want nothing to do with the show. It's the parents actually parading them in front of them, in front of their viewers. So you could see little butterflies all along the book, and I did wonder about the butterflies, and it only came out in the very last chapter. So there is a reference, because in the very last part of the book fast forwards to about 5 years from now, which is very interesting in itself, because you start to wonder, well, in the near future, how is this impact on us sharing our lives on YouTube, on sharing our lives on Instagram shorts and stories? How is this going to impact children? So 5 years down the track, we revisit the characters in this book. They do something, which I'm not going to spoil here, but it starts to make you think whether it was actually a very Truman-like ending, Truman Show-like ending in this book. For me, it felt sad. When I read this book right to the end, there was a sadness about it, but very much a book that made you sit long and hard afterwards, because it is so relevant today. So I would highly recommend this book for its current themes. It is a book that made me really sit long and hard and think about even my own, I guess, use of social media, because for me, in the past, I used to use it all the time. I did what was known as I worked out loud, I learned out loud, I shared out loud, I did everything. I just shared everything online. Where I got to a point a few years back, I said, no, I've got to cut the cord. I've got to cut this need to have people watching and commenting on what I do, and actually feel comfortable with not sharing so much stuff about my life online. However, at the same time, a few years ago also, I started this channel out of a lark, and I thought to myself, where's this going as well? I have no idea. My actual intention was basically to read books and just kind of share my life lessons and see, out of the books that I read, what can I do to apply the lessons out of my own life to make sense of my own life. And that's why Life Lessons from Books, this channel, was born. It really does make you think about our life online, whether it is positive or negative. Okay, so that's all I have to say about The Kids Run the Show by Delphine De Vigan. Highly, highly recommended book. So thank you for listening and thank you for watching. Bye for now.